You think the Wild West was all noble cowboys and honorable gunfights? Think again. What if I told you the real frontier was less Clint Eastwood and more complete disaster? We're talking explosive pants, literal snake wheels of death, and America's smartest men losing millions to rocks scattered on dirt. Yeah, that actually happened. Ready to have every John Wayne fantasy shattered? Because for the next 30 minutes, I'm dragging you through 33 instances of pure historical stupidity that somehow defined an entire era. Buckle up. 1. The Great Diamond Hoax of 1872. What if I told you that some of the smartest financial minds of the 19th century, we're talking bankers, politicians, even the founder of Tiffany & Company, got absolutely fleeced by two prospectors with a bag of cheap rocks? Yeah. Welcome to 1872, where greed made geniuses into gullible fools. Philip Arnold and John Slack convinced these brilliant men they discovered a massive diamond field in the American West. Investors poured literal millions into this venture. The reality? These two con artists had simply bought industrial-grade gems, the cheap stuff, and sprinkled them around like they were seasoning a very expensive lie. They salted the mine, creating the illusion of wealth where there was nothing but dirt and delusion. The sheer scale of this deception is staggering. These weren't small-time marks. These were the financial elite, blinded by diamond fever, falling for a trick so simple it's almost insulting. When the hoax was finally exposed, fortunes were lost, careers were ruined, and somewhere, Arnold and Slack were probably laughing all the way to their hideout. It's grade A, top-shelf historical dumbness. Sometimes the biggest lies work because people want so desperately to believe them. Oops doesn't quite cover losing millions on fake shinies. Don't miss what's coming next. Hit subscribe so history's best disasters find you first. 2. Literally explosive trousers. You've heard about frontier dangers, right? Rattlesnakes, bandits, dysentery, the usual suspects. But did anyone warn you about your pants? No? Well, buckle up because thanks to saltpeter, potassium nitrate used in gunpowder and mining explosives, some unlucky miners in the Wild West ended up with clothing that doubled as improvised grenades. Picture this, you're working in a mine, saltpeter soaks into your clothes during your shift. You finish work, you're tired, you hang your pants near the campfire to dry. Seems reasonable, right? Wrong. Add a little heat, a little friction, maybe a spark, and boom. Congratulations, your trousers just declared war on your legs. Imagine trying to explain that injury to your buddies at the saloon. No, really, it wasn't the poker fight or the whiskey, it was my pants. It's hard to look tough when your own wardrobe stages a mutiny against you. Forget saloon brawls or gunfights. Sometimes the deadliest thing on the frontier was laundry day. This is the kind of absurd, preventable disaster that perfectly captures frontier life. Practical hazards everywhere, including the ones you're literally wearing. 3. The mythical hoop snake that terrorized rational adults. Ah yes, the classic frontier folklore. Between genuine dangers like rattlesnakes, bandits, and rot-gut whiskey that could dissolve your insides, settlers decided to waste precious anxiety believing in the utterly ridiculous myth of hoop snakes. I'm serious. Otherwise, rational adults, people who survived brutal conditions and built lives from nothing, genuinely bought into the idea of snakes that would bite their own tails to form a perfect circle, then roll downhill like a biological wheel of death at terrifying speeds to attack victims. Some versions even gave them venomous stingers on their tails for good measure. Think about that image. A snake, rolling, like a tire. How does that even work anatomically? It doesn't, that's the point. It's pure B-movie monster logic, yet the belief was widespread enough to be documented in multiple accounts. People who could track animals, survive winters, and navigate by stars somehow thought reptilian hoops were hunting them. The fact that folks who survived extreme conditions fell for this shows how powerful frontier folklore was. Fear and isolation make people believe wild things. Still hilariously, profoundly dumb though. 4. The U.S. Army's brilliant bicycle experiment. Somewhere in the hallowed halls of military planning, probably after inhaling too much gunsmoke, an officer conceived what he genuinely thought was genius. The U.S. Army's Bicycle Corps for Frontier Warfare. Yes. In the late 19th century, the Army actually formed Bicycle Corps, thinking these spindly machines would be perfect for reconnaissance and troop movement across the rugged western landscape. Let that sink in. Bicycles. In the desert, on rocky trails, up mountains, with soldiers loaded with gear trying to pedal heavy primitive bikes through sand and over stones. It was an unmitigated disaster. The bikes broke constantly, soldiers fell constantly. Navigating actual wilderness proved impossible. It was less tactical advantage, more slapstick comedy routine with scraped knees and bruised egos. A perfect example of a solution desperately searching for a problem it absolutely cannot solve. The disconnect between planning and reality is staggering. Someone looked at terrain barely navigable on horseback and thought, you know what this needs? Thin wheels and pedals. Brilliant, truly brilliant. 5. Corsets in the wilderness because fashion over function. Frontier life demanded resilience, practicality, and apparently agonizingly tight corsets even while riding horseback through brutal terrain. Yes, despite the rugged landscape, the demanding physical labor, and the basic human need to, breathe, fashion dictated that women cinch themselves into rigid corsets held together with whalebone and laces pulled tighter than banjo strings. Imagine trying to mount a horse, let alone ride one for miles, while your internal organs are being rearranged like Tetris blocks. Comfort was clearly optional, maybe even frowned upon. It's a level of dedication to looking proper that borders on masochistic absurdity. Forget bandits or rattlesnakes. Just staying conscious in that getup during a bumpy wagon ride seems like the real Wild West survival challenge. Women performing physically exhausting labor while literally unable to fully expand their lungs represents an absurd dedication to social norms completely unsuited for the environment. Fashion over function taken to a truly painful extreme. 6. Bowler hats over Stetsons. Think Wild West icon. What hat pops into your head? The Stetson, right? That big, bold symbol of the frontier? Prepare for a historical curveball that'll make you question every Western you've ever watched. The real king of Western headgear, the hat actually seen on more gunslingers, lawmen, and gamblers than any other, was the humble, dapper, decidedly un-cowboyish bowler hat. Seriously, tough guys like Bat Masterson and even outlaws like Butch Cassidy often preferred these rounded domes. Why? They stayed put better in dust storms, offered more protection if a chair came flying at your head in a saloon brawl, and maybe they just thought it added a touch of murderous sophistication. It completely shatters the Marlboro Man image. Imagine Wyatt Earp, stern-faced, ready to draw, wearing something out of Mary Poppins. The disconnect between our Hollywood image of the West and photographic reality is astonishing. The Stetson became iconic later, but on the actual frontier, bowler hats everywhere. 7. High noon duels were mostly fantasy. Forget everything Hollywood taught you about the tense, honorable high noon showdown, that dramatic street duel where two stoic figures face off in choreographed glory. Almost pure fantasy, folks. Real gunfights were brutal, clumsy, chaotic messes. Think less ballet, more bar fight spilling into the street with bullets flying everywhere, except maybe the intended target. It was often a sudden ambush from behind, a drunken argument escalating too fast, or just a panicked flurry of shots where the luckiest guy was the one who didn't accidentally shoot himself in the foot first. The meticulously choreographed standoff was box office gold, but reality was far more likely to involve tripping over a stray dog while fumbling for your weapon than any kind of cinematic glory. Most documented historical gunfights were quick, dirty, and disorganized, nothing like the slow-motion drama we expect. Probably more embarrassing than heroic, honestly. 8. Prairie oysters. Surprise, you're starving. You belly up to the bar in some dusty saloon, and the menu offers prairie oysters. Sounds intriguingly nautical for the middle of nowhere, right? Maybe a pricey import? You order up, mouth-watering, ready for briny goodness. And what lands in front of you? A plate piled high with deep-fried bull testicles. Boom. Surprise. Yes, apparently during castration season on ranches, there was a rather large surplus of these particular items. And in the spirit of waste, not want not, some culinary genius decided the best course of action was to slice them, bread them, and sizzle them up. Truth in advertising? Optional. Hope you enjoyed your Rocky Mountain surprise. It's less a delicacy, more a frontier dare disguised as dinner. The casualness with which this appeared on menus, no warning, makes it even more absurd. 9. The U.S. Army's camel calamity. Picture the scene. Some high-ranking U.S. Army official, probably staring at a map, has an idea so blindingly brilliant it's actually just dumb. The American Southwest looks like Egypt, kind of. Let's get camels. And they actually did it. In the 1850s, they imported dozens of these grumpy, spitting desert taxis. The result? Pure chaos. The camels smelled, according to reports, like a stable got into a fistfight with a garbage dump and then set itself on fire. They freaked out the horses and mules who'd never seen such lumpy, awkward beasts. Their feet weren't built for rocks, and soldiers trained to handle horses were utterly baffled. It was an expensive, embarrassing failure. The camels were eventually auctioned off or simply wandered into the sunset, probably muttering camel curses about manifest destiny. The camel experiment represents military planning completely divorced from practical reality. 10. Cocaine and opium, miracle cures. Feeling a bit under the weather in the Old West? Got a cough, toothache, existential dread, general weariness from dodging dysentery and bullets? Fear not. Traveling salesmen and local apothecaries had just the elixir. And by elixir, I mean a potent, completely unregulated cocktail of booze, opium, morphine, heroin, or even cocaine. Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, marketed for fussy babies, was basically a morphine sippy cup. Early Coca-Cola packed a cocaine punch. These medicines promised miracle cures for everything from baldness to boredom, but mostly they just got people dangerously hooked or accidentally killed them. Forget feeling better. You were more likely playing Russian roulette with your internal organs every time you took a spoonful of Dr. Feelgood's patented tonic. The fact that these were openly marketed for children makes this particularly horrifying. 11. Tombstone's hilariously strict gun laws. Tombstone, Arizona. The name itself screams gun smoke and showdowns, home of the OK Corral, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday. Surely this was the buckle of the gun belt. A town where packing heat was practically mandatory, right? Get ready for the punchline. Tombstone had surprisingly tough gun control laws for the era. Ordinance number 9 made it illegal to carry firearms within city limits. You were expected, legally obligated, to check your weapons at the Grand Hotel or a livery stable. The legendary gunfight itself kicked off precisely because the Earps, acting as lawmen, confronted the Clantons and McClurys for violating this very ordinance. So the Wild West's most famous gunfight town was actively trying to be a gun-free zone. The irony is thicker than saloon whiskey. This fact completely destroys the Hollywood anything-goes image. 12. Cowboy was originally an insult. Think cowboy. You see John Wayne, rugged individualism, a hero riding into the sunset. That romantic image? Mostly manufactured hype. In the late 19th century, especially just after the Civil War, calling someone a cowboy wasn't a compliment. It was often closer to an insult. It frequently referred to young, often poor, rough-and-tumble cattle hands known for being rowdy, transient, and maybe not the sharpest spurs on the boots. It implied lack of sophistication, maybe even shadiness. Definitely not the square-jawed legend we picture. The heroic sheen was buffed on later by dime novelists and Buffalo Bill's Wild West shows needing a marketable hero. So yeah, call someone a cowboy back then with the wrong tone, and you'd better be ready to duck fast. The term was more like calling someone an unskilled laborer than an American hero. On 13, spectacularly broke cowboys. Forget the image of the lone cowboy owning his trusty steed and pearl-handled revolvers. The reality for most was being spectacularly broke. Seriously, many of these supposed rugged individualists were little more than underpaid ranch hands barely scraping by. They often didn't own their horse. Nope, that belonged to the ranch. Didn't own the saddle, sometimes not even the gun they carried. It was all company property, essentially making them gig workers of the plains, renting their tools of the trade. The romantic notion of the self-sufficient frontiersman often crumbles under the weight of basic economics. They were less Lone Ranger, more like temp employees hoping payday covered their tab at the equally sketchy saloon. Far cry from wealthy ranchers or mythical heroes of dime novels. If this shocked you, subscribe. There's way more stupidity where this came from, trust me. 14. Accidental self-inflicted gunshot wounds. While dime novels filled pages with heroic gunfights, a far more common and frankly dumber way lead met flesh was the classic oops I shot myself incident. Accidental self-inflicted gunshot wounds were ridiculously frequent in the Wild West. Picture clumsy cowpokes fumbling with unfamiliar firearms, maybe after a few too many shots of questionable whiskey, and bang, suddenly they're hopping around clutching a bleeding foot or worse. Forget quick-draw duels. More injuries probably came from holstering a loaded weapon incorrectly or cleaning a gun they forgot was loaded. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't heroic. Just a painful, often embarrassing testament to the fact that handling deadly weapons requires maybe a little more focus than was commonly available. Injury statistics show this vastly outnumbered actual shootouts. 15. Wild Bill Hickok's potentially inflated body count, including his own deputy. Let's talk about Wild Bill Hickok, a man whose reputation was as large as the plains themselves, maybe even larger thanks to his own knack for storytelling. While famed as a deadly gunman credited with dozens of kills, historians suspect Bill heavily padded his resume. But the cherry on top of this legendary fudge cake is the persistent awkward story that during one chaotic shootout in Abilene, Hickok accidentally blasted his own deputy, Mike Williams, who was running to help him. Imagine the paperwork on that one, whether strictly true or not. The fact it's a plausible part of his story perfectly captures the chaotic, clumsy, far from perfect reality often lurking behind the biggest Wild West legends. The idea that a Western legend might have accidentally killed his own assistant undermines every heroic narrative. 16. Moving entire buildings like furniture. Need to spruce up the town layout or just decided the saloon had a better view across the street? No problem. Forget zoning laws and demolition crews. In the Wild West, moving entire buildings like they were oversized furniture was a surprisingly common, if utterly bonkers practice. If a structure wasn't ideally placed, they'd just hoist the whole thing onto logs or massive skids, hitch up a bunch of oxen or horses, and literally drag the building, church, store, house, whatever, to its new location. Imagine looking out your window and seeing the general store slowly sliding past. It was frontier ingenuity meets sheer brute force, a kind of surreal large-scale home rearrangement that seems both incredibly practical and completely insane by modern standards. 17. Burning dried poop for warmth. Out on the treeless plains and feeling a chill? Wood might be scarcer than honesty at a poker game, but resourceful settlers weren't deterred. Their solution? Burning dried excrement for warmth. Yes, you heard that right. Dried buffalo dung, charmingly known as buffalo chips, became a primary fuel source. Families would spend hours collecting these sun-baked patties. Imagine the family bonding activity. Kids, go gather the flammable feces. While practical, it reportedly created a pungent, lingering aroma that was unique. Forget the romantic image of crackling logs in the hearth. Frontier coziness often smelled suspiciously like a canine convention was held indoors. The fact this was normal daily life shows how different conditions were. 18. The Pony Express spectacular financial failure. Daring riders racing across the continent, braving danger to deliver mail at unprecedented speed. It's one of the most enduring symbols of the West. And also, the Pony Express was a fast, famous, and spectacular financial failure. This legendary service, for all its romantic appeal and genuinely impressive logistics, lasted only about 18 months. Why? Because just as it got galloping, the transcontinental telegraph line was completed, instantly making horse-delivered mail look like, well, sending mail by horse. It was an incredibly expensive venture that never came close to turning a profit. A triumph of spirit and speed? Absolutely. A viable business model? Not even remotely. Talk about being disrupted out of existence almost immediately. The timing couldn't have been worse. 19. Competitive spitting contests. Forget sophisticated theater or libraries. Sometimes frontier entertainment got really basic, like the alleged existence of highly competitive spitting contests. While perhaps embellished over time, the idea persists that in some rough and tumble towns, men, and presumably only men one hopes, would gather to see who could hawk a loogie the farthest or with the most pinpoint accuracy, maybe aiming for a spittoon, maybe just a helpless beetle on the sidewalk. It's the kind of activity that perfectly blends boredom, boastfulness, and complete disregard for what we might politely call hygiene. The fact this is mentioned in multiple period accounts suggests it really was an activity. 20. Adulterated whiskey that could dissolve your insides. Thirsty after a long day? Maybe step up to the saloon for a glass of whiskey. Except this wasn't your smooth, aged bourbon. Frontier rot gut was often whiskey so vile it could probably peel paint, possibly dissolve your insides. To stretch supplies or just add a memorable kick, unscrupulous saloon keepers and distillers would adulterate their liquor with anything from turpentine, ammonia, and chili powder to tobacco spit, formaldehyde, or even gunpowder. Seriously, it wasn't about flavor, it was about potency and profit. Drinking this stuff was less a leisure activity, more like a dare or a desperate gamble with your own esophagus. Documented recipes for this whiskey are terrifyingly toxic by modern standards. 21. Safety coffins for the profoundly paranoid. The fear of being accidentally buried alive was so intense back then, people didn't just worry. They invented ridiculously elaborate safety coffins for the profoundly paranoid. We're talking coffins outfitted with bells you could ring, little flags you could wave through an air pipe, maybe even a snorkel contraption. All designed just in case you woke up 6 feet under with a serious case of oops, my bad. Imagine the sheer terror fueling that industry. One thing to fear death, another to invest in post-mortem panic buttons. You have to wonder how effective they were. Good luck getting decent bell reception down there or convincing the gravedigger it wasn't just the wind. The fact these were patented and sold shows how widespread this fear was. 22. Deadwood's Great Stink of 1880. Welcome to Deadwood in 1880, a town experiencing rapid growth and consequently the legendary Great Stink caused by truly epic levels of garbage mismanagement. We're not talking a few overflowing bins here. Imagine piles of refuse, raw sewage running in ditches, animal carcasses left rotting in alleys, and just general filth accumulating everywhere until the entire town reeked like something crawled into the devil's armpit and died. It got so bad, it literally triggered a typhoid outbreak. It's a stunning example of collective civic failure. Prioritizing gold and gambling over, say, not living knee-deep in your own waste. Guess basic sanitation wasn't as exciting as a poker game until people started dropping like flies from preventable diseases. 23. Road apples, the manure minefield. Forget paved roads. Navigating the streets of many Wild West towns involved constantly dodging and weaving through an obstacle course of road apples, which is the polite, almost charming term for horse manure. With horses being the primary mode of transport, town streets were basically minefields of dung everywhere all the time. Crossing the street wasn't just a walk, it was a strategic mission requiring careful footwork, a strong stomach, and probably holding your breath. Imagine trying to look dignified while hopping over fresh piles like you're in a gross version of hopscotch. Add rain and you've got, well, use your imagination. Just an accepted, incredibly smelly part of daily life. 24. Gold dust scams. Paying for your rot gut whiskey or supplies often involved gold dust, which sounds cool but opened the door to all sorts of wonderfully simple scams that apparently worked all the time. A common trick involved rigged scales, surprise that always weighed light when you were paying, or the classic bartender move, the generous pinch. When taking payment, they'd skillfully pinch a little extra dust between their fingers, maybe having applied a bit of sticky pomade beforehand for better grip. Seems laughably obvious, but in the dim light of a saloon with questionable whiskey-blurring judgment, countless prospectors likely got fleeced bit by bit. Low-tech, high-audacity cheating that feels perfectly at home in the Wild West. 25. The combo barber surgeon dentist specialist. Got a raging toothache? Need a quick shave and haircut? Maybe get that suspicious-looking wound checked out while you're at it? No need for multiple appointments. Just visit your friendly neighborhood barber surgeon dentist combo specialist. Yes, in many frontier towns, the guy who cut your hair was also the one pulling your teeth, lancing boils, performing minor and sometimes major surgery, and maybe even doubling as the undertaker. Qualifications often dubious at best. Enthusiasm probably trumped actual medical training. Imagine the multitasking. Snipping hair 1 second, yanking a molar the next, maybe using the same unsterilized tools. Terrifyingly efficient. A one-stop shop for grooming and potentially life-threatening medical procedures. 26. The dead man's hand, probably fabricated detail. So Wild Bill Hickok gets tragically shot in the back while playing poker. A grim end for a supposed legend. But apparently just getting murdered wasn't dramatic enough for history. No, we needed the utterly obsessed over, likely fabricated detail of the dead man's hand. Aces and eights. Here's the dumb part. Contemporary accounts barely mentioned what cards he held, but later storytellers decided plain old murder lacked pizzazz. They needed a cool, symbolic hand, and people latched onto it like gospel truth. Forget the tragedy. Let's argue for generations about specific playing cards a guy probably wasn't even holding when he got plugged. It's like demanding to know the precise brand of banana peel someone slipped on before breaking their neck, prioritizing a flashy, probably fake detail over the actual event. 27. Outlaws writing, taunting fan mail to themselves. Some outlaws weren't just criminals. They were apparently aspiring influencers with terrible impulse control, engaging in the incredibly dumb practice of writing taunting fan mail, essentially to themselves via newspapers. Instead of laying low, certain bandits loved the limelight so much they'd send letters to local papers bragging about their exploits, correcting inaccurate reports of their crimes, how dare they get the details wrong, or just generally trolling the sheriffs trying to hunt them down. It's like leaving a detailed Yelp review of your own bank robbery. While it probably fed their egos, it also often provided clues, confirmed their involvement, and generally made it easier for the law to track them. Peak criminal mastermind strategy. Self-promotion leading directly to self-incrimination. 28. Spectacularly brazen election fraud. Forget subtle manipulation. Election day, in many parts of the Wild West, featured mind-bogglingly creative and brazen voting fraud that made a mockery of democracy. We're talking ballot boxes literally stuffed like Thanksgiving turkeys, names of dead people suddenly appearing on voter rolls. Apparently, the afterlife had strong political opinions, votes openly bought with shots of cheap whiskey right outside the polling place, and good old-fashioned intimidation ensuring folks voted the right way. It wasn't just cheating, it was an art form, a public spectacle of rule-bending so blatant it was almost comical if it weren't completely undermining the whole process. 29. The Hangtown Fry Morbid Last Wish. What do you get when a condemned man in Placerville, California, nicknamed Hangtown for its swift justice, makes a final extravagant meal request? Apparently you get the Hangtown Fry, a bizarre last meal that somehow became a regional delicacy. The story goes a prisoner facing the noose demanded a fancy dish using the most expensive ingredients he could think of. Fresh oysters shipped inland at great cost and eggs. Someone cooked it up, and inexplicably, this weird combo of fried oysters, eggs, and often bacon caught on. Now it's considered a classic California dish, celebrating a dish born from a condemned man's weirdly specific, slightly defiant last wish. That's uniquely morbid and honestly kind of dumb. 30. Saloons before schools or churches. When pioneers established a new settlement, what were the absolute first priorities? Shelter? Water? Nope. Very often it was building saloons, frequently multiple saloons, before bothering with trivialities like schools or churches. You'd roll into a brand new town and find 3 places to get blindingly drunk, a brothel, maybe a general store selling overpriced beans, but forget about educating the kids or saving anyone's soul. Those could wait. It paints a vivid picture of frontier priorities: immediate gratification, escapism, and profit over community infrastructure or long-term planning. Gotta get those whiskey profits flowing before you worry about little Timmy learning his ABCs. 31. Wild West newspapers printing pure fiction. Forget fact-checking. Many Wild West newspapers operated on the principle of printing pure, unadulterated fiction and passing it off as news because reality was just too boring. Editors and writers frequently published outrageous tall tales, elaborate hoaxes about mythical creatures or miracle cures, and wildly sensationalized accounts of events with little to no regard for accuracy. Readers often devoured this stuff. Think of it as the golden age of fake news embraced with gusto. Need to sell papers? Just invent a story about a 2-headed calf reciting Shakespeare or a gold strike guarded by giant badgers. The line between journalism and imaginative storytelling was blurry at best and often gleefully trampled over for clicks, or whatever the 19th century equivalent was. These weren't isolated incidents either. Major papers engaged in what we'd now call yellow journalism on steroids. They'd report sightings of sea serpents in landlocked rivers, publish interviews with ghosts, and create entire elaborate narratives about discoveries that never happened. One famous example was the Great Moon Hoax of 1835, where the New York Sun published a series of articles claiming astronomers had discovered life on the moon, complete with bat-winged humanoids and unicorns. People believed it. Subscriptions skyrocketed. When the hoax was revealed, the paper barely issued a retraction. Why would they? It sold papers. Out west, this tradition continued with enthusiasm. Editors knew their audience craved excitement, and if reality couldn't provide it, well, imagination would suffice. Stories of phantom stagecoaches, miracle elixirs that could regrow limbs, and encounters with Bigfoot's frontier cousins filled column inches. The really dumb part? Readers often couldn't distinguish between real news and fabricated nonsense because it was all mixed together in the same publication. A genuine report about a bank robbery might sit right next to a completely invented story about a man who married a bear. Same font, same credibility, completely different relationship with truth. It was entertainment masquerading as information, and everyone seemed perfectly fine with that arrangement. 32. Shared bathwater nightmare. Picture this. You've finally dragged your dusty carcass into town, dreaming of soaking away a week's worth of grime, only to discover the local bathing situation involves sharing. Yes, forget your personal spa moment. Tubs were rare, water was worked, so the solution was often a horrifying communal dip. One tub, one shrinking pool of lukewarm gray water used by person after person. Dad, mom, the kids, maybe Uncle Jedediah who wrestled a skunk earlier. By the time it's your turn, you're not bathing. You're basically performing a science experiment on just how many human ecosystems can thrive in one bucket. You're essentially marinating in the town's greatest hits of sweat, dirt, and who knows what else. You might actually lose cleanliness points. But wait, it gets worse. There was actually a hierarchy to this aquatic nightmare. The man of the house typically went first, getting the cleanest, warmest water. Then came the other men, then women, then children, with babies going last. By the time you got to baby, that water was more soup than liquid, a murky broth of human existence that probably violated several laws of nature. The phrase, "don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," allegedly comes from this practice because the water was so opaque, you genuinely might not see the infant in there. Think about that. The water was so filthy it posed a legitimate baby-losing hazard, and this wasn't just poor families making do. Even relatively prosperous households practiced this because heating water was labor-intensive and time-consuming. You had to haul water from a well or stream, heat it over a fire in multiple batches, fill the tub, and then repeat the entire process if you wanted fresh water. Most people decided communal bacteria stew was the more practical option. Towns rarely had public bathhouses, and when they did, you'd better believe that water was being recycled through multiple customers. The whole thing was utterly gag-worthy, a testament to how desperate people were for basic hygiene and how willing they were to compromise standards to achieve it. 33. Overloaded ferries, defying physics, crossing a river. Got a rickety wooden ferry operated by someone whose main qualification seems to be owning a rope. Why not tempt fate by overloading it? Common sense would dictate caution, but nope. People routinely crammed onto these often poorly maintained vessels, piling on wagons, livestock, and way too many passengers, apparently believing basic physics and buoyancy were optional out west. Unsurprisingly, this often ended exactly as you'd expect. Ferries capsizing, dumping everyone and everything into the river, leading to drownings and massive loss of property. It's a special kind of dumb to look at a clearly overloaded, unstable raft and think, yeah, room for one more cow. Safety wasn't even invited to the party. The really infuriating part? This happened constantly. Historical records are filled with accounts of ferry disasters that were entirely preventable. The Missouri River alone claimed dozens of ferries and hundreds of lives because people refused to make multiple trips. Wagon trains would approach a crossing, see a clearly inadequate ferry, and rather than wait or find another route, they'd just pile everyone and everything on board and hope for the best. Ferry operators, motivated by profit, rarely refused customers even when their vessels were obviously overloaded. More passengers meant more money, and safety regulations were essentially non-existent. The ferries themselves were often just platforms of logs lashed together, sometimes with a rope system to pull them across, sometimes just at the mercy of the current. They'd list dangerously to one side as nervous horses shifted their weight, Water would start slopping over the edges, and people would just stand there thinking everything was fine until suddenly it very much wasn't. Loved watching history fail spectacularly? Subscribe. Humanity's dumbest moments aren't going anywhere. So there you have it. 33 glimpses into the less glamorous, more absurd, and downright dumb side of the American Wild West.